Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a bidders conference for OmniAir Consortium. I'm Jason Conley. I'm the Executive Director of OmniAir. We are going to walk you through an RFP that we have issued for technical writing services to help support our RFID tolling certification program. The copy of the RFP is available on the OmniAir website. If you are joining this call and you still need a copy of the RFP, please send a note in the chat box or contact Bonnie Buchanan, and we'll be happy to provide you with one. I wanted to, I'll start with a quick overview of OmniAir and our certification programs, and then I will turn it over to my colleague, Randy Roebuck, to walk through the particulars of this project that we're engaging in. Next slide, please. So OmniAir, for those who may not be familiar with the organization, is a trade association and certification body. We are the leading association promoting interoperability and certification for ITS, tolling, and connected vehicles. We have a diverse membership spanning tolling agencies, device manufacturers, other infrastructure owner-operators, test equipment providers, test labs, and engineering firms, as well as those that are active in the connected vehicle space. We think this gives our certification programs a unique inputs and strength not found in any other programs. Our sole focus is on testing and certification, ensuring the trustworthiness of devices to be deployed in transportation. Wireless communications devices ranging from DSRC for connected vehicles to RFID for tolling, and LTE V2X as well. Next, please. So this is our membership. As you can see, we do have a number of very active tolling organizations, as well as device manufacturers and labs. We hope to answer any questions you might have at the end of this about the organization or our tolling programs. Next, please. So our certification services, we offer certification services in several areas. We have a network of authorized test laboratories around the world. We have 8 OmniAir authorized test laboratories, locations in Asia, North America, and Europe. We have a qualified test equipment program where OmniAir reviews and evaluates test equipment that is able to test against our specifications and meets our quality assurance needs. In addition, we do device certification for both RFID tolling and DSRC and LTE V2X, which is a form of cellular V2X. And later this year, we'll be launching an OmniAir authorized field test site program, specifically for connected and automated vehicle and tolling test tracks. Next, please. So our tolling certification services is actually the first certification program that OmniAir launched. It dates back to 2012 when we began offering certification for 6C tags and readers. All of our certification testing is performed by independent accredited test laboratories and by one of our OmniAir authorized labs. The testing is based on our test specifications and procedures that we have developed in conjunction with the industry stakeholders, meeting the requirements of the end users of these tolling systems. Our certification consists of bench conformance, interoperability, performance, and field testing. All of our devices that are OmniAir certified bear the OmniAir certified mark. They receive a certificate and they are listed in our qualified product directory. That directory is referenced by a number of procuring agencies in the tolling space, and OmniAir certification is often found as a requirement in procurements for dozens and dozens of tolling agencies around the world. For the past year, OmniAir has been working with our members to develop a new certification program for tri-protocol or multi-protocol tolling tags and readers, and these are those that will include capabilities for TDM, SIGO, and 6C. Now, these are the 3 major protocols that were part of the National Toll Interoperability Program. OmniAir led a team that did testing for that program, and hence we're building off of what we learned through that project to help provide multi-protocol certification for the industry. Next, please. So we do have a tolling and emerging payments technologies working group. Tom Hutchinson of HNTB is the chair, but we do have a very active group that includes agencies, vendors for most of the device manufacturers in the industry, as well as engineering firms and others. This group has been focused this year on the development of requirements and procedures that govern our multi-protocol tolling device certification program, updates to our existing 6C certification program, and we'll begin looking at emerging technologies, including V2X-based tolling certification and road user charging certification later this year. Next. So in support of this effort, we're looking to procure the services of a technical writing specialist or consulting firm to assist in the drafting of test cases. So what we're seeking is a technical writer with prior experience or firm with prior experience both in writing test specifications for wireless communications device certification programs, as well as experience with RFID tolling. This will be in support of the project. It will involve working with published specifications as well as test scripts for each of the 3 major protocols. We'll be working under the guidance of OmniAir technical staff. From time to time, there will be reviews through our tolling working group and with our members, but this consultant will be working at the direction of staff. It is a limited duration project. We're expecting to complete the technical writing piece of this within 90 days, targeting a completion no later than July 1. This is for the first phase of the program. If successful, the consultant may be retained for a second phase for additional technical writing projects. The proposal deadline is March 5th, 2021. The RFP includes instructions for the submission of the proposals, and those will go to Bonnie Buchanan via email, bbuchanan@omniair.org. And let's go to the next slide, please. So this is a repetition of what you will find in the RFP, of what we're looking for, a description of the services, the background of the firm, qualifications, the approach to the consulting projects, communication style and frequency, and I think importantly, writing samples, and then no less than 3 references. Next, please. So evaluation criteria, this is a best value procurement, so we will be looking at a number of different criteria, including technical writing skills and experience, the dedication of staff resources available for the project, and I think this is a very important factor in that we need to make sure that the staffing is available to work during the period in which we've contemplated doing the project. Subject matter expertise is most important for wireless communications devices, and secondarily, prior experience with RFID tolling. Must be able to work within tight timelines. I think we talked about that. And of course, this project will be funded with OmniAir funds. There is not a federal contract supporting this, so therefore there will be some price sensitivity, and just keep that in mind as you prepare your bids. Next, please. And with this, I will turn this over to my colleague, Randy Roebuck. Randy is our Vice President of Engineering and Technology Programs. He is the technical lead for OmniAir and oversees our certification programs for RFID tolling, as well as connected vehicles. Mr. Roebuck, the floor is yours, sir.
Hello, this is Randy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The project starts out is developing individual test procedures to conduct device level testing at an authorized facility. These provide the certification guidelines to to the test entity to conduct each test and test case and its methodology. Currently, we had put 6C in place. We've been running for about 5 years, and we need to add 2 additional protocols, TDM and 6B/80K, which is called CGO-in branding in both a single and a multi-protocol operation. The devices that be used are tags that operate both in single and multi-protocol, and readers in single and multi-protocol states. So if you look at the components themselves, we'll have a single protocol operational conformance, which basically writes the testing guidelines to each protocol to be performed at a typical accredited lab. There is a tag parameter performance testing, which is basically taking the RF measurements both from a transmit and a receive in an anechoic chamber, and basically tests the analytical performance of the product. Then there's a device under test bench interoperability performance, where you basically put that particular product into the 3 multi-protocol state and get test parameters that will meet the minimum of the industry performance. Also, there is a component of environmental, both from readers and tags. Those particular tests are typically already defined by other procedures. This is just basically a listing of what tests to run and basically gives very top level direction. Then the 5th component is the overhead gantry field vehicle drive minimum performance, operating both in a single and multi-protocol state. Next slide, please. As far as what's been used in the past, we have one test laboratory, MetLabs, that has been running the 6C single protocol testing and has done some multi-protocol or the other performance. What's been used in the past is a National Instruments piece of equipment running in LabVIEW and a VISN scripting for both conformance and parameter performance. There's a CIS RFID tool that's used specifically for 6C for both conformance and tag protocol performance, and that particular test unit is shown on the right side there in its features. Number 3 is the standard bench testing, which is conformance and parameter performance. And in the environmental, it basically uses the standard environmental equipment out there, which basically any accredited lab for environmental can do, that's already based on industry standards procedures, and all we would do is be calling out the parameters to run. And then the last, we use a protocol reference readers and applicable tags for the field drive test. Next slide, please. The deliverables in the order, and they're pretty much ranked in order of completion that we'd like to see. Is we'd like to see a procedure written for the TDM conformance protocol using a National Instruments VISN scripting or its equivalent, and it could be applied. Second one would be the ISO 6B-80K conformance, and we'll show an example of what exists today on the test equipment. Then there's the ISO 6C using the NI, VISN scripting and CIS. I probably need to explain this one a little bit more. Back in the 5 to 7 years ago, the 6C was implemented on the National Institute's VISN scripting tool like the other two has. That was being used until there was a much more simplified version brought out by CISC and in the last 3 to 4 years, and that's what's been used for 6C in general. It does not have that hardware does not have the capability to apply the other two protocols to it. Then we have a tag parameter performance test, which we currently do for the 6C tag. That's part of our certification now. We basically want that tag parameter performance to be applied to the other two protocols, which is basically a slight adjustments for their parameters that would probably be used with the National Instruments above or equivalent spectrum equipment. Then on the right side, they have the TDM bench interoperability, the 6B bench interoperability, and the 6C bench interoperability. Basically, it's one particular type of test that you would apply in a multi-protocol setting, which you would put that particular protocol tag in and test it. And we had our working group actually devise basically the methodology to go do that, and we just basically need to apply it into a test procedure and moving forward. Then the next grouping is a single protocol drive test and a multi-protocol drive test. And in the last would be a tag environmental spec and a reader environmental spec. Are we taking questions at this time, or are we saving all questions at the end?
We'll just save questions until the end as they come through the chat.
Okay. Next slide, please. This is a list of documents that can be applied that can be provided in doing this task. The first item is the OmniAir test procedure template. We have an example what it looks like on the next slide. Then we have a test plan template, which I have an example coming up. Then there's the 6C tolling certification scope that was originally put together in 2014 that needs to be updated. We have that document in this list. We have the OmniAir multi-protocol tolling certification scope, where our certification working group under Frank Perry had developed this scope and approved by the board, and that document's available. We have a reference device certification scope procedure that's been approved and released by the board. We do have a recertification of product change notice that's out there, which can be followed for the guidelines. Then there's an EPC global tag test procedure, which was the foundation for our 6C product performance, which the lab generates. Then there's the TDM standard, which is actually a technical specification developed by its primary user, CAPS. Then we have a ISO 6B, should be -80K standard or branded as SEGO in general from TransCore. And then there's a 6E standard, the 18,000-6, and the 2004 really hasn't changed. They had some administrative updates to 2018, but it really hasn't changed since then. Then there's a 6E Coalition standard 3.2's document in the set. Then we have the multi-protocol tag testing, which if you look at the SharePoint, there were about a series of 3 or 4 documents there that's listed there. Currently, I have one of our large tolling operators basically looking over the documents and make sure that what we have listed here is so-called their final inputs. I should be getting that back here in the next couple of days as far as its verification of finalization from the industry. So we have a list of these documents, and in the last 15 through 18 is basically the data sheets or the user manuals of the test equipment has been used in the past and present. Next slide. Up at the top, basically this is a section where when a applicant comes in with a particular product, I use this template, which is actually that gets put out as an email, and we define exactly what the product is, what testing it goes through, and for its certification. So this is the boilerplate that it starts out with. And on the right-hand side is a test case template that we use in OmniAir for all our technologies, basically write up the procedure of what's supposed to be tested at what parameter, and if there is an industry standard, I'll actually reference the industry standard. That comes in a Word template. And at the bottom is some sample of the tag products that's used in a single multi-protocol state, shown in the picture. Next slide. This is some screenshots that came from the VISN software, which resides on the National Instruments equipment. There are scripts to walk through each one of these sections and actually produces a test report that comes out. We'll need a person to look at that, look at the standard there, make sure what it conforms to, and basically document the step to go through this. If it was done on a so-called a non-scripting basis, then they would have to describe each element. So the test could be implemented and tested in a consistent mannerism. Next slide. This shows the VISN software functions that rides on the National Instruments LabVIEW equipment. It gives so-called the technical attributes here. This particular functions actually would be used in the tag protocol performance, where you would set the tag up in an anechoic chamber, walk through the different steps from a receive, transmit, doing a tag orientation, and getting the parameters and putting it into a report. Next slide. Okay, this is a screen of the CISC protocol tester, which is used in conformance and tag parameter. It gives representative screenshots of the information it produces, and we can also provide so-called the test report that's actually generated from this. I did give the contact here in the US for this particular test tool if needed. And there's the links where they have a video instructions of the equipment in its walkthrough. Next slide. This is a repeat. I think we're at the questions and answer portion now.
All right, well, it does not appear as though we have any questions.
Okay, so I think
Bonnie,
Ryan,
we have one more slide. So just a reminder to everyone that all bids must be submitted electronically. The deadline is Friday, March 5th at 5 p.m. Eastern. Bids will go to Bonnie Buchanan at bbuchanan@omniair.org. Any additional questions should also be directed there. And generally, you can find more information about OmniAir on our website at www.omniair.org. This concludes our bidders conference. Thank you, and we look forward to reviewing the submission, your submissions for this project. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for your time.